How's it going, everybody? It's once again Michael Curtis here with Jonathan Green.
Adios.
Um, hey, hello, hello. And we're once again here with Let's Talk About It. And today's topic is brought to you by none other than Perfect Partner. So, what do we got on taps for today, Jonathan?
All right, so today we're talking about dance sport in the Olympics. Such a broad category, and I know that you've
Oh,
got to say. We got to talk about this a little bit ahead of time.
yes.
You know, there is a lot to say in general, I guess. What it boils down to isn't going to be one thing. You know, we've got to get our crap together as an industry and get organized enough to be able to state clearly what it is that we're trying to achieve when we're on the floor. And I don't know what other obstacles get in the way. I mean, lots of people say, you know, things like we should be in there already. And I've never studied what you have to do to qualify to be a sport in the Olympics. But people very often compare ballroom dancing to like figure skating. So, I mean, yeah, they're very similar. My understanding, though, is that also people complain about the results in figure skating. So I guess to me, it's not such an important thing because I feel like we have such a long way to go to agree on what it is we're supposed to be doing in the dance in our own world of just ballroom to open that up to everybody else and start taking opinions is probably so. It's hard. How do you like control and fix something that you don't know what it is? So I think we have to kind of figure out exactly what ballroom is and decide on that in our own, in the community of American rhythm, smooth, international standard, and Latin. And then after that's agreed upon, I would start to be worried about the Olympics. But myself, I'm like, you know, whatever. And I know you feel differently.
I actually I kind of agree, only on the simple fact of, if you think about it being in the industry long enough, you know, they coined this term dance sport. You know, ballroom wasn't good enough to get into the Olympics, so we changed the name to dance sport. So just so it could be a little bit more Olympic friendly, I guess. And ballroom's interesting because it's art and it's a sport. We're athletes and we're performers. I mean, it's kind of both, which is correct. I mean, if anybody's dance, it's athletic, you know. So my thing is, you've had all these beefing organizations between like WDSF, WDC, and you know, and it's, instead of working together to figure out how to do it, from my understanding of history of that, it's just like, well, we want to represent it. We want to represent it, you know, and it's like, this has been our problem. You know, you say, you know, and I think that's the thing about.
Hold on, Michael. For some reason, I'm not hearing you. I don't know what's going on there. Bear with us here, guys. So we just got some weird connection going. Should come back.
I think honestly, if you want my honest opinion.
Hey, Michael, you cut out on us a little bit there. Why don't repeat that for us?
Oh, you got, okay. So my thoughts on it is, I agree with you. I just think that, one, we never worked together on it. So you had all these different organizations, you know, fighting over who was going to represent ballroom dancing and dance sport. We changed the name to fit that, and then we didn't get in, you know, and it's kind of like, you know, and I think that ship has sailed, you know, because at the height of our mainstream ballroom being in the mainstream, I just think that's past, honestly. Ballroom's always going to be here. It was here before Dancing with the Stars. It's going to be here way after those dance shows. That's the way ballroom is. It's always survived. But I just think at that pinnacle, if we couldn't get in, we're not going to get in. And it's just unfortunate. But you see, breakdancing got in. So why did they get in and we didn't? I mean, obviously breakdancing is newer than we are, because breakdancing started in probably the 70s, early 70s. You know, ballroom dancing has been here way longer than that. So, you know, I don't know what to say about that, but
sure. I mean, the roots of ballroom dancing have been around longer than that. But, you know, like American style dances, I believe they've been around for that long. Um, at least not in the way that they are now. Like my understanding is that, you know, not even 20 years ago, waltz was still danced in American rhythm with cha-cha. Maybe it's a little over 20 years ago. I'm not real sure. Maybe I should look that up. But it's not over 40. Um, so, you know, ballroom has been evolving, especially in America, because they introduced two new styles, American smooth and American rhythm. So now their time has been spent working on these new dances that they're trying to figure out versus just continuing to work on the same dances everybody is, international standard and Latin, which whether that's positive or negative is not necessarily the concern. It's just that you have 100 people working on dance. If you take a portion of that 100 and have them work on a new style of dance, well, then you have less people working on that original style of dance. So you dilute the progress in a sense. But again, not such a huge concern. I just think that ballroom is still lacking a lot of its identity, at least in the American styles for sure. And maybe not by like the top dancers. I get that, but by everybody else, you know, you got 10, maybe 20 people that know from head to toe what it is that's supposed to be going on at all times during your movement. That number needs to increase, I think, big time. Judges need to be told more clearly what they're supposed to be judging people on, like physical actions, not artistry or performance and things like that, at least at the lower levels. And then once everybody understands and agrees upon the way that we're supposed to function or move our bodies, then after that we can start breaking the rules a bit, talking about art, performance, and things like that. But so yeah, this for me, as much as I would like to see ballroom dancing in the Olympics, more than that, I would like to see ballroom dancers able to carry on discussions and have meetings about how to progress their dancing and actually come to, you know, agreements on things and move forward efficiently.
Yeah, it's funny you said identity. When I think of identity, it's like if you think of, and we talked about this, if you think of hip hop, and to be clear, breakdancing is in the Olympics. Hip hop, breakdancing, two different things, people. Let's look into some history here. You know, you got people going, well, I do, you know, I hip hop. Like, no, you're breakdancing. B-boying is because they danced on the breaks of the music, and the DJs would play that beat, that break over and over again instead of the whole song. So then they would dance to that break. So that's the history of the B-boyings or breakdance boys or B-boys. They don't use that term B-boy anymore, hardly, but it's, you know, breakdancers. So it's not hip hop. Hip hop's the more kind of commercialized mainstream version of it, I would say, that is kind of like enveloped a bunch of different things. But breakdancing has made it. Okay. So we talk about identity. There's a whole culture behind hip hop, behind breakdance. There's a whole culture, how they dress on the street. I mean, and that's where I get, and this may not be a popular thing. I love ballroom, but ballroom doesn't have an identity because it takes the identities from other things.
Yeah, I guess American style specifically, 100%.
I would say that.
International, from my understanding of its history, has also 100% done that. It took movements, dances from around the world and combined them together to make different styles of dance, so that when someone performed, they would be showcasing multiple styles of movement. So that was my understanding as well. I don't think it's hidden that they try to do that. However, this does bring up, and this thing we did talk about a little bit before, like I had never thought about until you mentioned it. You know, like when someone tries to do a hip hop move, that's it. They try to do the hip hop move and then they don't look like the professional doing it. That person doesn't say, I know how to dance hip hop. But in ballroom, when someone learns a pattern or knows how to just move their feet around the floor, but doesn't look like a professional, it's very common for them to say, I know how to dance ballroom. So it's an interesting point of view that we take with bar.
Yeah,
I don't know if that goes alongside of the whole
it does.
and call it ours, an entitlement type of, or just like a we're better type. I don't know. And I mean, I don't particularly care about that too much because each individual is going to treat it the way, however they treat it, whatever. And
Right. And this kind of goes back to our little performance when we are like one of our other topics we talked about. We talked about creativity and performance versus like the mechanics behind it. And I think this speaks to that because there has to be a conversation or the teachers have to get involved with teaching the history, and the students have to want to know the history of why things happen that way. There's an emotion, there's an anger behind crumping, behind a lot of the things that come out of like breakdance and hip hop, because there's an emotion attached to it that comes from history of that heritage. So basically, if you don't understand that, your moves are just coming mechanically versus it, why. And I saw that on the thing was, so you think you can dance. That's what they said. They said to one of the dancers, like, well, you're emulating the moves, but there's not that passion behind it. That's what drives that particular part of it. So I just think, yeah, it's, as far as identity, to get back to that topic, I don't know what, I mean, ballroom dancing is great because, you think of, we're kind of models because everybody dresses nice, even when they're not competing, got that European flavor, we look good, it's great. We have that going for us. The way we walk, when a dancer walks into a room, they walk a certain way. But as far as identity and why the Olympics may have said, hey, let's get hip hop, let's get breakdancing in here, is they, if you see them walk in, the way they dress, even on a normal day, looks hip hop. Hip hop has a culture of how you dress. And and what's happening is they're getting a younger crowd. So if you think about it, it may have just come down to a business thing where we can get more sponsors, more money, more people interested because hip hop is big. Breakdancing is big. I mean, it's huge.
Oh yeah, but then you still got to say, well, why is it big? And that's when you're going to get into the discussions and some of the things that we're talking about now.
I do believe that. I do believe part of it is a younger crowd. And when you think of ballroom, I think if you took a survey, most of them think, well, that's what my grandma and grandpa dance. That's the older style of dancing. So it doesn't attract the younger crowd. At least not in America.
I think it's more so just that ballroom is not creative. Like, you're not supposed to learn ballroom and express yourself. I mean, eventually, yeah, sure. No matter what you're doing, whatever you're learning, eventually you're supposed to express yourself. But like in hip hop, because it is not as strict in terms of movement, what you're allowed or not allowed to do. Hip hop is very similar to contemporary in the sense that there are no rules. If you are able to complete an action and make us believe in that action goes. There are no rules. Whereas in ballroom, we have this idea that you can't do certain actions because they're not allowed. We don't make it clear which actions are allowed or not allowed at which times, and that's one of the problems. If we chose to go the route of hip hop and say, hey, we're not judging technique, we're judging performance, artistry, those types of things, well then, okay, that's a different route. Then we can start getting into the realm of ballroom, and then it's really more so just partner dancing, and people of all sorts would enjoy partner dancing because they can do it any way they want. There's no restrictions. It's a freeing, creative, it's an artistic thing. Whereas ballroom, I'm sorry, it's two people moving properly with one another around the floor. It is math. It is physics. You don't have time to be thinking about creativity or expressing yourself because you're not handling the machinery that needs to be handled.
So would you say there's a disconnect between the social environment versus the competitive? Because social, when people don't feel like there's a result or they have to go, I have to be correct, then they kind of like have fun and it's like, woo, this is the best swing ever. Then it's like competition. It becomes stiff. You think there's a disconnect there? And maybe would that just be a teaching thing versus the industry itself?
Yeah, ultimately, anybody can take hip hop and teach it in a way that seems more like ballroom, like you have to do this. If your teacher's telling you you have to do something, then you don't know any different. You have to do what that teacher's telling you. So learner doesn't necessarily, I'm losing where I'm going with that. But a teacher can manipulate any lesson into teaching it however they like. Ultimately, though, in hip hop, the individual is going to go out there and dance on their own to the music, and they're going to practice in their isolated movements or their individual choreography on their own. With ballroom, you have a lacking in those things big time. And honestly, the only way I would say it's a result that I can think of now that it's connected to that social side of thing is that social, basically in my mind, means I don't have to try hard. That's what social means to me. When someone starts talking about the difference between social or competitive, what are you talking about? We're all trying to do the same thing. It all works most efficiently one way. Whether you're coming from a competitive standpoint or a social standpoint, doesn't matter. The step works best one way. There's one single most efficient way to move with another person. So
Yeah,
I
agree with that.
Social to me means how hard do I have to work? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think to me it means, do I have to be correct? And I think that's kind of the divide.
Yeah.
I think that's the divide,
It is hard to be correct.
Yeah.
You gotta work hard to
Yeah.
make things work properly.
And that's where we talked about, with the, my performance level dance method. I'm like, look, stop trying to be correct and get back into being creative.
See,
Take that away from them, because when they social dance, you can put them on the floor, social dance. Oh, well, why can't you do that on the floor? Because they're trying to be correct. They're trying to get results, Well,
and then
so I think there's a teaching flaw there. That's another subject, but I think that's a teaching thing. I wouldn't say it's the industry. That's where I kind of stand on that. But
the industry wouldn't be able to tell a teacher, they don't have a standardized rule book, like this is how you move.
And that's
so that is the industry. I mean, maybe it's the people within the industry's responsibility to create that, but the people who lead the industry need to be concerned about creating these things. I don't particularly see it. I mean, everybody realizes it's a problem and they kind of have ideas here and there, but there is no committee that's like diligently working hard to did you lose me?
I lost you. Yeah.
Sorry,
it's your turn.
I was just saying, in Ballroom, there's no community out there that's diligently working at solving these issues. And that's really what needs to happen. People need to be together. The top dancers need to be together discussing. Someone needs to pay them to get together, or at least pay to get them there. You know what I mean? Maybe they can volunteer their time, but the expenses covered. I don't know. But these things need to be happening more frequently. And yeah, I mean, we got more stuff to figure out still. I think
with the Zoom thing,
someone needs to focus on performance, but that's only after someone can pass a test about function. Need to worry about. I don't need to be looking, especially as a judge. I don't need to be looking at how people are performing when they aren't staying balanced. And if you're using performance as a way to get them to work on technique, that's a different story too. But we all have to be able to read in writing and say it to one another what it is that we're clearly being judged on, and understand how to make that come to life.
So one question for you. So this kind of ties in with what we talked about last time about has Ballroom reached that point? Are we here now? I think when I say that, I don't mean that is Ballroom's going to ever go away,
right?
Because as I see videos online, there's people that are not in America that they still love ballroom dancing. You see them practicing all the time. You see them like putting videos out. They love ballroom dancing. And not to feed a stereotype, but it's like, athletics in my communities. We saw that as not just a sport, it was a way out for a lot of people. So they played basketball or played football with a different mindset than people that were like, oh, this is fun. This is a hobby. No, this is my ticket to help my family. So there's people that are dancing ballroom and they view it that same way. It's almost like it's an art. It's high up there. They treat it differently. So for them people, it's not going to ever go away. And I think those people are actually, they're over there talking about it right now. They're actually doing it. I think this is almost a mostly America thing.
I mean,
yeah, but this is where we live, and this is where everything kind of drives off of, because we have the dance shows. Well, actually, we kind of took some of the dance shows, which we kind of do that. But I think
we take anything.
Right, but I think this is more of an American thing to me. I know we're thriving now with smooth is becoming big, and that was a big step. But ballroom as a whole, as our question,
Oh, losing you a little bit
but
there.
they put breakdancing in, and it's
Well,
just, you know, it's a
sorry,
it's a question that I will. Oh,
I lost you a
so
little
the
bit. What was that last
okay,
part?
so the question just becomes, you know, which is what the topic was, and we've kind of skated around it, but we've kind of indirectly answered it. Why did breakdancing make it? Why did they say yes when we fought so hard to get in, but didn't get in? You know, and that's the question. Why did that? Because there has to be a reason why they didn't do it. You know, and it's one of those things where, you know, we didn't get a call back.
I mean, I would imagine that's just because we couldn't agree. I mean, really, the Olympics doesn't know what ballroom dancing is. If the people that were bringing it to the Olympics just made a clear front, this is what it is, it wouldn't have to be right. They just have to agree on whatever it is that they're saying, and then it would be accepted, I guess would be my thought on it. But again, I don't. This is with no research. I mean, I don't know what.
Right.
I mean, I know that when the discussion was happening and they were really pushing to get ballroom in the Olympics, I looked it up and what was required by the sport. You know how the Olympics defined a sport in their in the different categories. But
And I think they talked about. I think one of the things I read was.
What's that?
I think one of the things I read was that it was the subjectivity of the judging, and I think that was one of the factors is how do you score it? You know, you just can't go to the Olympics.
Yes,
the biggest thing and go, well, you know, I've known this for a long time and I just don't like that. Well, what didn't you like about it? You know, that ain't gonna work.
The dress.
Yeah, I have a headache, you know.
Maybe we'll look at a different style of dance for next year's Olympics.
So I think that's part of it. And I think, I think they kind of toyed around with, well, do we have a skating system? Do we have that? Do we introduce that? But I just think we were set up in a way with, once again, there's that. And one, on the business side, I think that they're just attracted to a younger genre, a younger form of dance. You know, you can get those younger attendees. The sponsors are going to be younger with more money. That's really attractive. You know, they're probably going for numbers at this point. How many people are going to watch this? Oh, because hip hop, let's talk about it. We talked about this before. Hip hop culture is responsible for, like, I forgot what the number is. It's something huge, like, as far as the economy goes, like 40% of
the modern
money
culture.
is coming from
hip hop culture.
Yeah.
It's
huge. It's huge. So you think about merchandising. We can sell this. We can sell that. You know.
Those old movies that were making, like, in the people wearing weird outfits when it was just like 2000 or 90s or something, they should have actually just been had those people wearing hip hop culture. It's really incredible. I think you might have lost me there again, but
I can hear you, but I couldn't. Yeah, you're back.
Okay. And that is it is a whole culture. I think what you said in terms of like how like your part, you came from a culture that looked at sports as a way out, and it's not just that. It's because and they were able to do that because sports, the ones that they're looking at, were respected. They had a certain level of respect, just as a career, as a sport, as a whatever it was, that became an option even. Ballrooms hit that, at least not that awareness level for young people, but that is what needs to happen with ballroom, not what's happening with hip hop. What's happening with hip hop cannot happen with ballroom. Ballroom is a sport. It is not, maybe when you get through the sport of it, if you can get through the sport of it and you can work, get to levels of working on like your performance method and things like that, then absolutely it's an art. But it's a sport first and foremost, because these things have to be done in a certain way for it to work. And that is what makes it a sport. So we have to make sure that they're doing what has to be done physically for it to be able to be achieved. And then after that, we can judge the artistry or whatnot. Maybe that can come into play, but first things first. And hip hop does not have that. Hip hop is, they pick their own songs. They make their choreography to that song. They don't have a time restriction that they're going to be having to stick to every single time they walk on the floor. A time restriction, actions they're supposed to go through, needs to be more clear, but that is what they expect of us, whether they say it or not, and whether they make it clear to us or not, that's what they expect. So there's not that type of judgment and criticism on hip hop. Hip hop is much more about art. Like you were describing, it came from something, being a part of that struggle wherever that came from. And that's what came through in the dance. It was expression. It was about those things, not about sport, not about comparing one person to another person. That was never, maybe in like the original days of B-Boys, there was a little bit of that going on, but the crowd would decide. It was not the dude who was the dancer wasn't necessarily the one who, it's just like a rap battle. The dude who's the best rapper isn't necessarily the one who wins the rap battle. It's the dude who makes the other person look dumb, so there is that.
Right. Yep.
That also is more of an artistic, you use artistic tools to do that, not,
Well, I do have to applaud WDSF because they are, from what I understand, the ones that do represent us with the Olympic Committee. But they're part. They actually sponsor a lot of or deal with a lot of the breakdancing events from what I've seen. But also, what I found interesting was, and this is what we need more of. And I'm just kind of like getting a peek of it because I saw some videos. So we need more of this. They had like a Latin battle. It was like, I saw the video where it was like, they put on, it was like a group and there was people watching, and it was a couple, they did cha-cha-cha, next couple came out, did cha-cha-cha, and they saw who the winner was. Cool. So we need stuff like that because here's how hip hop got better. Here's how breakdancing got better. They were doing it all the time, which means
that would
just like rapping, you talk about rap battles. You walk, depending on where you live, you walk down the street, somebody comes out, oh, I heard you were good. Let's go right now. And it was go time, unless, somebody walks up on me in the street and goes, cha-cha, boom, let's go. We're not, that would be kind of awesome, but
right now.
Yeah, right now, let's go. But no one's doing that. But the breakdancers are practicing all the time. I used to hang with a crew. You led a crew. But I used to watch them, I would go watch them and they would just be practicing stuff all the time, all the time. And so then when they go battle all the time. So the sport kept growing. I mean, you're watching people innovate and create. We need something like that. I know we have I know we have dance camps, but I love those. And we had more of those like rounds and, just battle it out, just to create and stuff like that. But if WDSF can have more videos like this and that could become popular, maybe that's a way for Ballroom to get more of a younger crowd. I know we have young people. I get that. We have juniors and stuff like that. But do we have that middle crowd? How much of that do we have? Because we have a lot of young. We have a lot of the older demographic.
We really don't have that middle. I mean, I get that in Ballroom we see it as, we have more of the young than the middle. But we really don't have a lot of young. It's just in Ballroom in proportion to the middle.
Okay.
But really, like, you don't see, people don't expect to see little kids in America dancing, unless it's ballet tap jazz.
Right.
Yeah. I get what you mean though. We definitely have more of a focus on young than we do in like the teenagers for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's just my solve for it. That's for me. We need to get a younger crowd. We just need a younger crowd. We need more interest in the younger crowd. Younger people nowadays have more money. It wasn't like that back in the day.
Sure.
They didn't have as much money. Before the internet and .com and stuff like that. Yeah, they didn't have money like that. Now you got 20-year-old millionaires. 25-year-old millionaires. The money has gone down a little bit. So it's no longer just you had to been working 20 years of your life. You're now 45, and now you got a lot of money. It's not that anymore. We need to attract those people to make bigger things like the Olympics or anything happen because they're probably looking at numbers and we don't have the breakdancing hip hop culture numbers.
No.
And will we ever have that? Unless, like I said, I was absolutely thrilled by the Latin battle. I was
Yeah,
absolutely thrilled by
I mean,
it.
I don't know. I'm not thrilled by it just because like I do believe that it should be trained more as a sport. I think you should show up to practice and run your laps, do your drills. I think that's how dance should be done, not like hip hop. Uh, unless you, I mean, honestly, is where I'm at right now with dance is I don't care. Just pick a direction and go. So if you're going to pick if the people who are running dance are going to get together, or they can get enough people together in dance who are involved in it, that they're going to say, hey, we're going to make dance about art. It's going to be about art, not about the sport of it. If that's the case, then I love that idea. Do dance battles, do whatever hip hop has done. Try to replicate that same process because it's worked for them. But I myself, the way I think of dance and the way I teach dance and whatnot, I can change if everybody agrees on it, fine. But I believe it's a sport. I don't think
Yeah.
You show up, you get in line and start doing drills. You don't, there's none of this expressing yourself crap. You get in line, you prove to me that you're going to do the physical work to even be put on the field. Then once you're on the field, maybe, you can switch the ball from one side into the other. But until then, that ball better stay tucked and not going anywhere because I can't trust you to do it, and you can't trust you to do it. It's too difficult a process. If you make a mistake, it's a mistake. It's not art. It is.
Well, I'll leave you with 2 points. And one is the problem with the sport versus us is in football, I don't care how you score a touchdown.
Yeah, right. I get it.
Get across. If you dance across, if you high step across the end zone line, or you just walk across, you're not gonna get 8. Yeah, you're not gonna get 9 points versus 6. I'm sorry.
So pointed.
Yeah,
only
exactly.
5 points.
Yeah, but in dance, the argument is we do care how you got across the line. So it's almost an unfair comparison because we got to be understanding that that's where the art comes in and the sport comes in, because we are athletic. We are doing something athletic, but there's an art and a discipline behind it. So kind of different. But so I will go to bat for that on that. But the one thing I'll leave you with is I think that, and this is a question for you, and maybe this is a different topic now. Maybe we're not advancing because the ones at the top wanted to be old.
You mean they wanted to be exclusive?
They wanted to be traditional. So you have you have people that don't want to. They're stuck in
don't like change.
It has to be like this, and this is the way it was when I did it, and this is the way it should always be. And you're like, well, things are changing now. The world's changing. A lot of that. It is. It's not pointing out names, but we all know it. And we've all heard it. Like, yeah, well, they're doing this nowadays. That's every discipline. It's changing with the times. We're more athletic. We're faster. We live longer. So the idea that.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And we know that there's just a few people calling the shots. So.
That's probably the problem.
Is it being slowed down because there's a few people calling the shots? And it's just they're not gonna let it evolve because it has to be the way it was in this time. Or can they actually represent the bigger number of ballroom dancers? Because the bigger number are the instructors. That's the bigger number that you need to appease.
Well, I don't know who it is that's really pulling the strings. Oh shoot, sorry, we lost you a little bit there.
Oh, so yeah, my point is like somehow the bigger number of instructors, which are the bigger number. The bigger number is the instructor, the everyday instructor that is out there doing 40 lessons, not a champion, probably doesn't have a title or anything like that, but they're the ones that are like, I will call them like the front line, the blue collar instructors, the ones that are out there in the front lines. But I get, what we get, we just get hey, well, we're going to have a meeting in New York at this day. And, your representative is asking for your vote. I actually sat in on one of the amateur meetings. Well, it was the pro meeting, but they were talking about the amateurs. And I guess it was I think it was start ball. And the amateurs had a lot to say. They had a lot to say about things that they
problem too, though.
Yeah.
that can be just as much of a slowdown. I mean, you want to know how slow we can go, start listening to amateurs on what we need to do. You'll find the industry can move.
Still the customer though.
But I get your point. I do get your point. There are people with people who are passionate and they want to help the industry.
Right.
If at the very least, it would be nice to say that we had a committee that met with the amateurs, but we can't even get that far because we would need a committee that met with the professionals.
Because once again, there's only really a few people calling the shots.
Yeah, and I don't know who those people are,
we know who those people are.
I mean, I don't know who is controlling them though, too. Influencing them. Who's. Yeah. I don't know who it is and all that's influencing all of the slowness. It's really hard to see because people in all industries have a tendency when subjects are brought up just to agree to avoid confrontation and not actually discuss what's going on. But you do see, I think we're seeing now that there's going to be more of a time for change than we've ever had in Ballroom. You see the next wave of coaches, I think, are way more liberal thinking or just open-minded.
I'll agree
with their strategy, with the way they look at dance. They're way more accepting and they listen to the younger community. I mean, the Maria Hansons, the Ilya Raisins.
Oh yeah, yep.
These guys,
I agree with both those. Yep.
Yeah, these are important people in the industry that are going to be looking out for the best of the industry, not themselves. So, I think it's clear when you can tell who's doing that and who's not. Those are just two of many people who are doing it. And it's not that people from the generation of dancers before them are doing it either. You have lots of people who want change and want to see progress. But, if you think about it from their perspective, they're surrounded by their fellow, workers or just their, colleagues that don't feel the way that they do and are, so that only makes it harder for the ones that are in that generation to say, hey, change needs to happen. But this is see in every industry, every generation, everyone's trying to hold on to values, and there's good things to it and there's bad things to it, so.
Yeah, I agree with you that the whole, from what I've gathered from what we've talked about, to kind of summarize, it looks like we talked about we need to find a way just to get more youth involved, make it look a little bit younger. And then
everyone involved. Even who are doing it already need to
get
involved and learn more about what's going on and just lend a hand, even if it's not necessarily the direct solution of we're going to get this rule book made. It could just be lending a hand to someone cleaning up something so that they can free up time in their space, their brain or whatever. There needs to be more involvement, people. And part of that goes into, like what you say, we need more people. So, and how do you get more people?
More people involved, a little bit more turnover in the powers that be. If we're gonna have an organization, man, this can't be the olden times where it's you just rule until you die. It's just there needs to be turnover. There needs to be turnover. Sure. And then we talked about internal conflict, which I agree with. There's a lot of that. Some people don't agree with how NDCA does things. So basically you have people that go, well, screw that. I only need them to compete. So I'll just start my own little thing over here. There's been so many ramblings about the leadership and, so now you just have people doing their own kind of different things there. And
lots of small groups get together, but then they're only together in a period of time and then nothing happens. So they just, it hasn't gotten done. There's been some good attempts.
Yeah. So I just think there needs to be a way to bring everybody together and to figure out what is ballroom dancing? Where's it going? What does that look like? What does that look like? I mean, can someone send me an email from you leaders who are, NDCA, WDC, somebody, send us an email that says what your vision of ballroom is in the next 10 years, 10, 20 years. What does it look like to you? Because right now it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. It seems like they want it to be the same way that it was in the 20s, 30s, and they want it to be that way when if you don't go with the times, you're on the wrong side of history. Look at anything that's changed in society over time. The people that have held on to a certain belief, you end up on the wrong side of history because you get left behind. You gotta let it go because things are changing
right now. But at some point, it has to be, and so that means
it has to change.
Now's the time or not.
Right. And if there's no change, there can be no progress. If there's no progress, then where's the sport going? Where are we going with it? So that's what I'll leave it with. I mean, it's once again, we got, I think this is like our longest topic.
That's not surprising. Yeah,
we started going
sorry,
here.
Well,
we can do this all day. We can do this all day.
We'd love to hear what y'all think about it. Let us know, comment, or even reach out to us on at perfectpartner.us.
Absolutely.
But yeah, these are important topics. I'm glad we're talking about them, and hopefully you'll have something to say as well, those of you that have joined us.
Absolutely, yeah. Once again, we're opening up communication lines. We have our opinions of stuff, and it's just come from experience of being in an industry, and we're voicing just what we feel, but we want this to be a conversation. So if you've got thoughts, bring those thoughts. Like I said, if you want to you want to agree, come on out. If you
even if you disagree.
Yeah, even if you disagree, let's talk about it. That's the name about it. So, but I think with discussion, exactly.
Yeah, discussion has to happen. You're right. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, there you go, guys. Come talk with us. We'll see you guys next time. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Michael.
We'll see you soon.